All right, let's get this party started. You guys, welcome to Real Estate at Work. This is the part where I say, I'm your host, Leka Devatha, but not today. Today is so special for me because I have two amazing friends that know me really well, that know my successes, that know my failures, interviewing me. And so I've been terrified, first of all, because I'm like, what if I'm not good enough? What if no one shows up? What if I don't add value? And my friends keep telling me it'll be okay. So although I have interviewed like, I don't know, hundreds of people on this platform, I am being put on the hot seat, and that is scary. But
hold on.
I'm excited.
Let's just right now, just take a poll. Who's excited to hear about Leka's life and know that she's going to add value today? Yes? There we go. I see that hand. That's it. You're gonna
Thank you. Thank you. As always, take screenshots and please share on social media, tag us, and this is the only way we can spread the word. I can't believe this is our last meetup for the year. My first guest, which it feels like yesterday, was Scott Trench, and Scott now has a baby who's like 5 months old or something. So it's crazy how many months has passed since that. I've had some amazing guests after that: Avery Carl, Rachel Richards, Cody Davis, and it has just been a fantastic year. But this is the last time we're going to meet on this platform this year, and hopefully next year we can bring you more amazing guests and people that can add value. Okay, so I am going to hand it off to my friend Ashley Kehr, who is host of the Bigger Pockets Rookie podcast. She has actually interviewed some real rock stars, and I'm simply honored to be interviewed by her today. I don't think she's ever interviewed me before, so this is going to be, it's going to be different. And also my good friend, Nate Robbins. He is most handsome, and he is local to Seattle and has invested in this market for 7+ years. He's also one of the best MCs I know. So if anyone has an event, you have to get him to come be your MC if he has the time, that is. So for the first time, I am handing it off and sitting in the hot seat. Let's do this, guys.
Okay, well, you guys, we are taking over. Leka is out. We're just going to exit her out of the Zoom call and really take this over. But Leka, I am so sorry to tell you that this actually isn't going to be an interview. We are putting you into the hot seat and we're doing a deep dive. Your team members have provided us with your property information, your financials, and we're going to be exposing it all.
I'm also auctioning off her personal cell phone. So if you've always wanted that, just tell me how much you want to pay. Whoever pays the best, I will absolutely send it to you. No problem.
That's amazing, guys. Thank you. I knew you'd have my back.
Okay.
So let's jump into this. Oh, Nate, you got more.
Well, I think we should just set the stage. First off, everybody needs to have their cameras on. No, I'm just kidding. Do that. But this is a good-looking group of people. So Leka, well done on putting together a very good-looking group of people. So well done on that. A couple of things. I will just say this: we are going to do 3 different giveaways today. So it's going to require some audience participation. So be prepared for those. One of those will be a 30-minute coaching call or just hangout time on the phone with Leka. So if you want to talk business, if you want to talk strategy, if you want to talk fashion, if you want to talk food, whatever it is, you have 30 minutes with her. So we're going to be doing that. And then kind of today, a couple of things before we get started. Number one, if you have questions for Leka, we are going to cover kind of 2 categories. We want to talk about real estate investing, some of the lessons that she's learned over the last 7 years, which is 8 years. Well, I met Leka. Has it been? Golly, it's just so crazy. So Leka and I kind of started about the same time in real estate, and she was always just kind of a local legend, just an amazing human. One of the best people on the planet, amazing mom, investor, and it's just been cool to see the exponential growth that she's had over the last 8 years. And so if you have questions in regards to real estate, please type those in the comments. We'll get to every single one. because Ashley has said she's here for the next 5 hours, and we are going to dive into every single one. But we'll talk about that. And then what I'd really like to do, and maybe I'm interested in this part, but talking about her growth in networking and social media. So we're going to kind of cover those two topics today. So if you have questions regarding that kind of stuff, please put those in the chat and then be prepared for the giveaways. So Ashley, I think we are going to start with her real estate career. And since you are the host of the Real Estate Rookie podcast and know all things real estate, why don't we take it away and let's just get into it.
Okay. Well, Leka, thank you so much for letting us take over. Where I kind of want to start out with you is maybe just an overall view of what your portfolio looks like today.
Yes. So my portfolio is largely here. First of all, guys, Nate and Ashley, thank you for taking time out of your precious day to interview me. But okay, going back to Ashley's question, my portfolio consists of single family rentals, conventionally financed 2 to 4 unit multifamily rentals, an apartment building here in Seattle, and also as a GP and LP, an apartment, $30 million apartment project in Orlando, Florida. 3 single family flips that I'm actively remodeling, 2 here in state and 1 in Raleigh, North Carolina, a 7-unit office building, and a couple of pieces of raw land that I own free and clear. And I started with nothing, zero. I even took a HELOC on my house. So it's been quite the career, I have to say. I feel blessed, and you know, it's been a lot of hard work.
Leka, off the bat, when you started out as an investor, just what comes to top of mind of some kind of mistakes that you made that a new investor should learn from you and not make the same mistake?
So one of my good friends that I'm, you know, really happy to know is Thatch Wen, and Thatch is actually local to Seattle. So I was investing in real estate from 2014, and then in 2017 I had lunch with Thatch. So it took me 3 years, 3 full years to know that I was making this mistake. Thatch basically looked at me and said, "What are you doing? Why do you flip homes, take the profit, and do more flips? Like, how is that going to allow you to retire or build long-term wealth?" He's like, "You've got to start keeping everything you buy. Like, everything you buy, you have to look at it from the lens of, how do I hold this long-term? How does it produce cash flow? And how is it going to appreciate?" And that was an eye-opening moment for me, because I was like, yeah, you know, it's true. Like, I do all these amazing flips, I make a lot of money, and then I pay a lot of that in taxes, and then I put the rest back into more flips where I am not building anything. I am just creating more work for myself while I flip all these amazing houses. So I think if you can find a way to hold on to whatever you buy, because real estate's only going to get more expensive. It doesn't matter inflation, it doesn't matter interest rates. In 3 years from now, what you buy today, even at a high interest rate, is going to appreciate.
Go ahead, Nate.
No, well, I think.
Okay, well, I didn't want to take this whole thing over from you. Okay, so Leka, as a new investor starting out, you had your challenges, your mistakes that you made that people can learn from. Now, present day, what are some of the biggest obstacles that you have in today's market?
I think finding deals, just finding good deals that pencil in today's market, to be super specific, is how do you underwrite a deal when you know that your cost of money is going to just go up in the next few months? When you know that you maybe have to get competitive on your rents, you know that maybe you're within a recession. How do you underwrite deals? And I think that's been like one of my biggest challenges is finding good deals, whether it's flips, whether it's just long-term holds, whether it's apartment buildings. We've been underwriting deals. Like, one of my co-GPs, my underwriter, Kunal Kumar, is on this call, and we've been underwriting deals for a good 8 months now. And I think we've seen 2 deals that maybe pencil that didn't work out because there was cash buyers sitting on the sidelines. So I think it's just finding those good deals because there's a lot of money still in the market.
I think I think that's a hot point for a lot of investors. And like, I know if I was starting out now, I'd be a little bit intimidated to even try and get a deal. So is there any kind of like kind of principles or things that you're looking at specifically to make sure that you're underwriting deals well and making sure that they're actually good deals? Is there like things that you look for specifically or different criteria that you're kind of analyzing with?
Yeah, it's funny how before, like, sellers didn't care about where you got your financing or how you got it. Today, when I go to make an offer, every seller, the first thing that they want is a sure shot loan term from a recognizable lender that says, okay, this is your term. We will 100% finance you at this cost, at this purchase price, at this loan term. So finding deals that actually fit that criteria where lenders want to lend and sellers want to sell, that's a big deal for us. Second is I'm always looking at how can I add value? How can I add value and instantly raise equity into this building? And the way that I do it, and I've done it for a long time, and the only way that I know how to do it, honestly, is by rehabbing properties. So taking something super distressed and then fixing it up so that I can instantly raise rents. Like the rents on my apartment building that I bought in West Seattle, when I bought it was $8,000 a month. But just by fixing it up within 4 months, I have been able to basically charge double, not double, actually. I'm charging now $22,000 for the building. So that's much more than double. So that's one way to quickly add equity. And so that's always my thing is, okay, the purchase price is great, but how much do I need to spend on it to fix it up? And then is it still going to pencil out?
Okay,
Right.
so that I feel like is the hard part, is how much is it going to take to fix it up and what are the things that you're actually going to fix? So how did you, someone working in fashion, learn how to estimate rehab and what goes into a rehab? Did you fill out a team? Did you, shadow people? Did you just hire contractors? What were, some of the things you did become knowledgeable in that area that someone else can do? And were there any mistakes that you made along the way?
That's a great question. And were there mistakes made along the way? Oh, yes. I'd be lying if I say that I didn't. I honestly didn't know the difference, that there was no difference between sheetrock and drywall. I walked into my rehab, my very first project, and I asked my contractor why the drywall wasn't up. And he said it's because plumbing and electrical weren't even in. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. So I didn't know anything about construction. But what I did was that very first project, I actually walked 14 of my contractors through it. And every just to get a bid. And every contractor I walked through his process of estimating rehabs, and that taught me a lot. And then what I ended up doing was I ended up hiring a contractor who was not cheap, but who I knew was willing to sit there and teach me every day what was part of the construction process. So I would walk in and he would tell me, okay, today this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it. So every day I showed up to this project and I said, okay, what are we going to do today? What am I going to learn today? And I just stayed there for 8 hours watching them work, made myself a list and figured out, okay, this is the process. You first do demo and trash out, then you do the framing, and then you do all your plumbing and electrical trim, then your insulation, then your drywall, then your texture and your priming, your paint, your trim, your cabinets, your floors, all of that, right? So like I didn't know any of that. And then as I started doing more and more and more fixers, that process just became super clear. So
I
it's
think
not an easy, it's not overnight for sure.
But I think the principle is really important, what you just said, because it's probably just me, probably nobody else. But when you don't know something, it's really easy to be insecure. It's really easy to be like, oh, I'm just going to fake it, or I'm just going to go with it, or just assume, instead of having the humility to just ask for help and kind of do what you did, just like, let's just get a bunch of people through and I'm just going to listen and just kind of gauge with that. And so I think those are really great tips, honestly, to do that, to learn and grow that way. So actually, I don't know if you have anything to add on that, but I think that was a wise idea.
Yeah, I think, and we have some questions in the chat about it too. So I think we should talk about that process a little bit more. So when you did that, and I think that's a great idea, is basically just job shadowing the contractors. You're paying them. They'll probably be annoyed with you standing there, but Kara Beckman, she's at Beckman House on Instagram. She did the same exact thing. She would pay contractors to let her like hang out with them and follow around. She would ask them questions, what they're doing. And that's how she kind of learned the process. And another great way to figure out those kind of steps, because a hard part of a construction project is, okay, you know, all the things that needs to be done, but what is the order? So it's not just, oh, the plumber is coming in, he's getting his work done, and then the drywall goes up and then the plumber's done. No, when the tile floor in the bathroom is in, the plumber will have to come back, set the toilet. So it's all these, you know, contractors and moving pieces that you have to understand too. And even with having a general contractor that's overseeing all of these, it's still good to have kind of an idea of how these steps work. So Jay Scott has a book out, Estimating Rehab. It's in the Bigger Pockets bookstore. I highly recommend that. And that's also another challenging issue, is how do you even estimate the rehab? So in his book, he basically goes over what those different things are, those different steps in the construction process, so that you can start to make a list, a checklist, and then add, you know, your estimates based on that. And it's in his book, he's not going to tell you, oh, to replace an HVAC unit, it should cost this much, because it varies across the US as to what the cost differences are for that. I mean, one thing too that I see that ranges so vastly is the permit process too in construction. Like before construction even begins, is finding out what permits you need, how long it takes to get a permit, what the cost of the permit is. So Daryl and I went to get a permit today for a roof on a property, and we're putting a new roof on it. We went to the clerk's office. We paid $100 for the permit, and we will have the permit signed tomorrow and ready to go, and a contractor to start. So I know in some places like Seattle, it doesn't happen that quickly or nicely, so that's why it's so hard for somebody to tell you this is exactly what you should estimate for. But so Leka, what tips do you have for someone figuring out how to estimate and budget for their rehab?
I think the best way that I did it when I first started was, like I said, I interviewed 14 different contractors, and I started doing that for every project in the beginning, is interview as many people as possible, as many contractors as you can find, always promising every contractor that he was going to get the job. So I would take people through and be like, okay, how do you know, what is the scope? And then B, how are you, charging me for each of these line items? And then they would send me like a full line item bid, and then I would walk through it, and I'm like, okay, so this guy's charging me $12K for roof, and this guy's only charging me $8K for roof. Like, what is his bid involved versus what is his bid involved? And then Tarl's team, who, you know, Nate is part of Tarl's team, they're also really good at doing this, is just, you know, kind of looking at what each person is charging and why they're charging such vastly different numbers. But that's one thing. And I also saw a lot of questions about out-of-state rehab process. Honestly, I'm really bad at out-of-state investing, because if I'm not boots on the ground and if I'm not seeing the project with my own eyes, I am more inclined to pay more for it. So the first thing to do if you are rehabbing out of state, and I'm doing one right now, is have excellent boots on the ground. Someone who thinks like you, someone who wants to save money like you, but wants high quality like you. Once you found that person, for me, it's my brother, so it's easy. But once you find that person, you have to FaceTime on a regular basis. You have to see, okay, what is the work that is being done? Before every draw, you want to make sure that a certain amount of work has been done. And then how do you estimate rehabs? same age-old process. I interviewed 7 different contractors for this house. I looked at all of their budgets because their prices are very different than Seattle prices. So like, how does it compare from one bid to another within the same city?
So someone just put in the chat too, that there's a lot of work that goes into putting together bids and estimates. So another way, instead of just having contractors come, is you can actually offer to pay them for the bid.
And I've done that too. Like you pay them for their time, whatever the cost is, like per hour, and depending on how many hours they spend in my job site, I'm like, okay, I'm happy to pay you that if you give me a meaningful bid. So like for my contractors that I interviewed in Cary, North Carolina, I would pay them like $300, $400, $500 to send me a bid.
Yeah. And I love the idea of having the breakdown, doing the line items as to what they're going to do, especially too. And that's not only great to hold the contractor accountable as to what they're doing, but we've run into the issue before where it's not clear as to which contractor is doing what. So one cabin we're working on right now, we kind of have a general contractor that's doing most of the work, but we had a plumber come in and install a new HVAC system throughout. And it kind of got a little, and all of the water lines, and it kind of got a little fuzzy as to like, okay, who's, going to be, running the lines now that we have the drywall up and all these different things. So having that clear scope of work is super important. So Leka, you have your contractors actually build out the scope of work. You don't build it out?
I do have now it's vastly different from when I first started out, because when I first started out, I just knew that I wanted a room there, I wanted a bathroom here, I wanted a master suite, and I wanted an open kitchen, open floor plan. That's what I knew. But how to build out that scope? No, I had no idea. Today, it's very different. Today, I work with the same guys for the last 4 or 5 years, that when I walk in, we are so on the same page. We're like, okay, this is how we're going to open up the floor plan. This is where we're going to put the bathrooms. My light fixtures are going to cost a certain amount. My trim is going to cost a certain amount. We are going to put wood, metal railings, no wooden railings. We're going to put all hardwood, no LVP. So like all of those things are already priced in. So it's vastly different than before. And then somewhere along the way, I picked up how to create a scope for sure.
Nate, are you raising your hand?
Yeah. I was gonna say one of the tricks. Yeah, me. I want to go. Can I go, please? No, one of the tricks that you can, if you're starting off, is you can pay a home inspector come and just walk the property with you if you don't know like what needs to be fixed or what's wrong with the property. Just say, hey, I don't need you to write up anything, but I just need you to walk it with me and tell me what's wrong and what needs to happen. And then the other thing too is that as you do more projects, and probably the more experienced investors on here have like a finishes sheet. And so going to Home Depot, I hate this part, but like some people love it. You go to Home Depot, you pick out your flooring, you pick out your tile, and then you say, hey, like specifically, this is the tile that I'm using. I am going to use subway tile. I don't care what else you think. I don't care about I had a contractor one time. He was like, hey, do you guys want a shelf in your shower? And I was like, does that cost extra? And I was like, yeah. Or he's like, yeah. And I was like, no, I don't want it. So, it's just like, if you have a finishes sheet and then you can kind of say, hey, these are the finishes I'm looking for. This is because if with fixated, like we have it's a 3-page finishes sheet, the exact toilet with the SKU number, the exact flooring with the SKU number, we have the exact paint with the SKU number. And so the contractors, there's no miscommunication with them as they do that kind of stuff. But I don't know, do you have a finishes sheet as well, Leka?
No, because every one of my houses has a different finish.
You're one of those cool people.
So no light fixture is the same, no tile is the same, nothing's the same. It just depends on how I walk in and I'm like, okay, this is what I'm feeling for this house. Like I want a black and white vibe, or like I want a mid-century vibe, or like, so every house is different. Plus I think my price points are also much higher. My price points are 1.2 to 1.5. And at that price point, like I have to make it special. Like my latest house that's coming on the market in a month has wallpaper and just amazing like fireplace wainscoting and cool like ceiling drop down sconces and like a double vanity in the bathroom on either side of the door. Like it's just got like cool stuff. So I just can't stick to the same finishes.
I like it. we want to talk about your transition from single family to commercial. Tell us, what was the genesis of that story? And yeah, give us all the details. How do we do that? How do we do that?
So, it was COVID. No, kidding. But it was during COVID. I was honestly, like everyone else, stuck at home. And I was like, what should I do today that I haven't done in my career before? And that was start a LinkedIn page. I know. So here's the thing. If you want to think big or think different and you put yourself amongst those people that are thinking that way that you're not, then I think what's going to likely happen is you're going to soon start thinking like them. And so I was very active on Instagram, and I was doing a lot of cool single family and 2 to 4 unit multifamilies, because that's what my sphere was doing at the time. Once I started getting active on LinkedIn, I realized that no one talked about single family. No one talked about just a single flip. Everyone talked about commercial real estate. People talked about buying large apartment buildings. Like my friend Ashley Wilson here buys, 300 unit apartment buildings. And when I started to see that, and every post was about how do you buy them? How do you buy them right? How do you underwrite them? How do you finance them? What is the CapEx like? What is property management like? I started to think that I needed to venture into multifamily. But then with that, what happens is you need to obviously find money, and money can come through crowdsourcing or syndications, unless you have some really big private lender. And so I was like, okay, let me try to syndicate a deal. So what then also happened was I was on a lot of podcasts, again, because of my LinkedIn network. They got me in front of a lot of podcasts. Being on the Bigger Pockets podcast put me kind of on the map to doing other podcasts. And so as I started to get to spread the word around that I was looking at doing multifamily deals, I started to have a lot of people follow up with me and say, can we invest in your deal? Can we invest in your deal? And now I had the money that I needed. So all I had to do was go and do like a test project. So I'm always like, before I start something crazy and something big, something that I haven't done before, I do a proof of concept. So whether it's a single family flip or whether it's venturing into multifamily, it's always like, can I raise this money? The people that want to invest with me, do they really want to invest with me, right? So what I did was I raised a small fund. It was nothing big. It was under $1 million. And I just was like, okay, let's see, like, it's not even my apartment building. It was a different operator. I was like, okay, let me see if I can raise money for someone else. And kind of understand the whole capital raising process. Because before I would say, I need 100 grand. And then I would have one investor just give me the 100 grand on a promissory note. But this was going to be different. So then I went to my investor pool, my investor network, and I said, okay, I want to raise this fund. And I was able to raise the fund like within a couple of days, just all the money that I needed. I was like, okay, that's exciting and also motivating for me to go find a bigger deal. So then I found an apartment building, and again, I had to raise money, and this was now my own project. And funnily enough, because I was the operator, because I was the GP, because I was boots on the ground, and this project was in Seattle, people were more willing to invest in it because it was my project. And I had a solid track record. And so I was able to raise a lot of money within 4 days. And so, it's just, my transition was slow. I'm not going to say it was fast. I didn't flip a house one day and then buy an apartment building the next day. It's been 8 years. And I'm not saying that you have to take that much time, but there's something about setting things up right and setting a good foundation. And that's kind of what I did. I also do different kinds of investment, like crazy exit strategies, land subdivisions. I have my first commercial office building. But the reason I'm able to do these different asset classes is because they're all in my neighborhood. They're all in Seattle. This is where I have my network. This is where I have my contractors. So it's easier for me to fix problems. So just, either find a niche or find a great network within that location to help you along that process.
Yeah.
And this right here is a perfect example of how to network and meet somebody.
Yes.
Yeah, all I heard you say was that all your friends peer pressured you into going into a larger asset class. Is that?
Yes, pretty much.
Way to go, Ashley. Way to go. Yeah, no, that's cool. So the things that I heard, and I don't know, like for me, I think a lot of us, especially if you're in real estate a long time, will at some point start considering other asset classes, or maybe there's people on today that are trying to define what asset class they want. What are like maybe like 3 questions or 3 things you should have in place? I obviously, like a network was one of the things you said, but if somebody wants to make that jump to another asset class or expand or grow, what are like 2 or 3 things that you would suggest having in place before making that jump?
I think you have to be able to underwrite deals, first see if the deal even works. It could be it could be self-storage, it could be anything else, but like, are you in a position to underwrite the deal to put you then in a position of success? So it could be any asset, but if you don't know what you're doing or what you're buying, like when I had this self-storage itch for a while, and I only associated myself with AJ Osborne or Ryan Gibson, and I would take them deals and they would say, we've seen these deals, we've passed on it, they're shit. Okay, moving on, right? So but if I didn't have them and I just ended up buying these deals, or I'm gonna drop this bomb right here, I have underwritten lots of deals with Matt and Offrio, and those were some triple net deals that I'm like, I'm glad I didn't buy them. Thank God for good people in my corner, right? Like, you never know. So I think it's exciting to go in front of a learning curve, but you have to back that with solid underwriting and people that really know what they're doing to help you out and help you figure that out.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that all makes sense. Like, I think understanding the asset class is really important. Like, not to keep up bringing Ashley Wilson, but she's magnificent at underwriting apartments. I've only caught tidbits of her, like talking through her underwriting process, and I'm like, oh my God, she's a genius. And so yes. I think you're right. I think that's good. And having the network in place to really have that support, I think that's really good. And then going for it. Like, start small, like you said, start small and then go for it. Why not? Yeah.
And Leka, what are some ways that you added value to these other investors that were helping you?
Yeah, first is not wasting their time, to show them that you are really in it to put the work and take action. A lot of times, like, people come to me, they want to be coached, they want a 30-minute call, they want me to talk them through various flips, but then I don't see them taking any action. And that's like the biggest letdown for me, because like, I am putting my life aside to help someone out, and they're just going to go away the next day and carry on with life and really not take any action. Like, that has been my biggest pet peeve. So for me, it's the opposite. Like, if I am serious about self-storage or serious about fix and flip, then I would go to my mentors in that specific area and show them that I'm worthy of that conversation. So like, whether it's James Zaynard is one of my biggest mentors here in Seattle. And very early, he saw that if he gave me a project, like, I was going to take it to the finish line. And because of that, his team just kept sending me better and better and better projects that they wouldn't send to anyone else. And it's because they knew that even if they gave me a difficult project, I would bring it to the finish line. So just, proving yourself.
Yeah, well, no, I think what you said is, I hope that was not lost on the audience today. I think, like, taking action. I'm sure Ashley, I know I have people like, hey, I want to get an off-market deal, and I will pour my heart out. I'm a very sensitive individual. I am. But I'll pour my heart out, and I'll be like, all right, cool, here it is. This is exactly what you have to do. I'm willing to share. I'm willing to help you. I will go on appointments with you. And then you follow up 2 days, 3 week later, and it's like, oh, I'm not going to do that, or I haven't done that, or it's just like a waste of time. So it's really frustrating. Right. All right. Well, one of the things I like to cover, because you have I think we just have like 10 minutes left. One of the things that I think I've been really impressed by is your ability to grow your social circle and network really, really well. You've always been a local legend here in Seattle. Like, I've known Leka for 7 years now, 7 years now. And I know her personally to be one of the most genuine, selfless, humble, amazing people on the planet. And so if you've had the pleasure of knowing her on a personal level, I mean, she's just one of the best people ever. And so locally, she's always had that reputation as being a serious investor, a quality human, someone you can trust. But what's been really interesting to me, like, is especially over the last 3 years, I've seen you network and grow your social circle in exponential ways. And one of the things I've noticed in my real estate career is that people have a hard time oftentimes networking and growing their social circle well. It's hard to jump into a new group. It's hard to get to that person that's kind of further ahead of you. And so I was wondering if you could kind of talk about your journey into networking, because now you're a national superstar. You're hosting events all over. You're on podcasts all the time. And so what are some of the things that have kind of allowed you to expand your network really well and kind of and grow in that way that might be beneficial to others that are looking to do the same thing?
Thank you. You are so sweet, Nate. But honestly, I think it's my love for people and meeting new people and hearing like amazing stories across the country that made me want to get in front of more people. I think even hosting this meetup, this is our 32nd meetup in 3 years. And so every meetup, I meet someone new, I see someone that has never been here before, and then we become friends on social media, we see each other's content, and I think that's just helped grow my network, my cycle. This is why, like, I didn't want to do a podcast back in 2020, because I wanted there to be interaction. I wanted people to ask questions. I wanted to see the audience just as much as I wanted to hear from the speaker. And so I was like, okay, how do I grow my network, but also grow someone else's network? And that's why I started, like, I think, we don't have another meetup like this one, where we deep dive into the person's background and mindset and failures and successes. This is practically the only one. And it's because I wanted to build that community. But also I have to say, being active on 2 different forms of social media that are so different from each other, Instagram and LinkedIn, puts me in front of an audience that is also very different. So if you guys want to grow your network in a certain direction, like, Instagram is great for that social moral boost. And LinkedIn, you may not get that moral boost, but it's very quality connections where if I'm raising money, I'm looking for deals or looking for insurance agents or like escrow companies or investor management software, like whatever it is, I am getting that out of my LinkedIn network. And then it's my LinkedIn network where all the conference hosts are, people that see my content that say she needs to be on stage, that give me these speaking gigs, which turned into then me emceeing huge conferences. And so I think just putting myself out there, but not just putting myself out there, I put my heart and soul into my speaking engagements, into my emceeing gigs, whatever it is, that I'm like, okay, now I can actually see the growth of my network, which has been really, really fun. And hopefully I'm adding value.
Well, I think that's pretty obvious to anybody who meets you, like you're always very authentic. And I think we can all relate to meeting people who are very inauthentic and that are always kind of just gunning for something or wanting to get something out of you. And so I think that's a really good thing to highlight, is the fact that you're very authentic in your interaction with people, and that can pay dividends when you're looking to expand your social circle and different things like that. I want to kind of you hit on 2 things that Instagram and LinkedIn have really helped you expand your social circle. Obviously, you've had a lot of credibility in the projects you've done, but what is your strategy? Or what are some of the tips you have for like your social media strategy to kind of expand your network? Because it sounds like that's been a real critical piece of building out where you've gotten to now.
Yes. I think, the one thing is like, we can all look at someone's social media and be like, hey, that's so cool. They live the best life. And, it's all glitz and glamour. But I also make it a point to talk about all the obstacles that I'm facing, renters that don't pay, or like just the bad stuff that goes on in investing. And I think I put out both kinds of content, the good and the bad. I'm also very intentional with my LinkedIn posts. Am I adding value? And then if someone else is posting, then commenting. So not just for the sake of commenting, but actually commenting because I have something intelligent to say or add value to that post. I think those two things have really helped. In terms of networking in person, I always say this, it's easy to network. It's so easy to go into a mastermind. It's so easy to go into a networking event like the real estate at work events that we host in Seattle. It's easy to go to a meetup group and see connections and form 100 connections in a day. But I think the difference is you have to make those deep connections where I can actually pick up the call and say, hey, Ashley, I need help. And Ashley's ready to drop anything to help me because of that deep connection that we have. And so it's not just about networking, it's about how do you network and then how do you add value to then obtain value. And I would do the same for any of you, right? Like if you call me and said, hey, I'm in deep trouble or really need help with this, then I know that you're the real deal and I will help out. So same deal is building deep connections, not just networking or
Yeah.
not just building a network.
Well, I think you said, again, I keep hearing authenticity with you. I think that's it. And I think we see that in this meetup, right? As well, we see authenticity. And I think that's why people are so attracted to you. I heard adding value is really important. So I think it's easy to go to meetups and just want to like get from somebody. But if you can be proactive in thinking, okay, well, what does Leka need? If I want to be a part of your team, it's like, okay, well, what needs do you have? What are you posting about? What are you, and coming to add value and being proactive in adding value. Actually, I don't know if you have anything to add on that. Cause I mean, you're around bigger pockets quite a bit and it's the same kind of thing, right? Where if people want to do that, to be proactive in adding value, but I don't know if you have anything else you want to add on that.
Yeah, it's like a super easy way to add value is going on the Bigger Pockets forums or going on Instagram, following other investors and just hyping them up on their post, just commenting. So we are doing this 90-day rookie mentee where we had people apply and we've selected 3 mentees. And one reason we selected one of the mentees is because Tony and I see him all the time on Instagram. He's liking every story. He's commenting on every post. And we knew him because of his engagement with us. And we're like, we feel like we already know this person. Like, we've seen his stuff on Instagram, he'll tag us and we'll share it or we'll go and look at it. So he was one of the biggest reasons he was selected was because of his engagement with us. So like for me to be the podcast host, if I didn't have Instagram, I probably would have never been the podcast host because who would have known who I was in, a small rural farm town outside of Buffalo. And so I think the power of that, and I did the same exact thing to Brandon. I wanted to be on the Bigger Pockets podcast. So I would tag him and he would share my stories. And the producer actually reached out to me and said, hey, I see you all over social media. What's the investing you're doing? Let's set up a call. And then I got to be a guest on the show. So I think there's tons of value in that. And just like hyping people up, if you don't feel like you have enough experience or really a lot to offer as far as knowledge, think about other things that there's so many things that translate, so many skill sets that translate into real estate investing that you can add value. Today, content creation is huge. Nate and Leka, I feel like have texted me 3 times in the past 2 weeks to Photoshop a picture for them on Snapchat or whatever. And I don't even have my Snapchat anymore. So if anyone is good at editing, Leka and Nate need you guys. But there's so many different things, even just like if you're in construction, project management can go so far. Building out systems like using Monday boards or Asana, things like that. There's so many different ways to add value. So I think like a big takeaway is when somebody's posting about something is just kind of engage with them, whether it's a comment, it's, hyping them up, it's a question, or just you kind of maybe take a turn on it and they're posting about something, you can offer some kind of advice, like, actually, this is what we do at my work that might be beneficial for you to try out. So
yeah,
I
think it's easy to feel a lot of pressure, and I don't know if like Ashley, if you'd agree, but like sometimes like it's nice to have somebody approach you based on like a hobby or something that you else are interested in. Like, we connect on real estate, that's what we do, but like if you were like, hey, you want to talk about cycling, let's talk about it. Like I enjoy that, right? And so it's like if you can do a little bit of deep dive and like bring value, I think that's that, that can go a long way for that. So yeah, like anything else to add, like if somebody's wanting to build out their social network, if they want to expand, get to know somebody that's like 10 steps ahead or 5 steps ahead, like any other advice that you would have for somebody that wants to kind of get out and move up or build those?
Yeah, I mean, just ask to shadow them on a work day. Like that's also really fun and really cool, because if you were able to just shadow them and go with them to all their different projects or any projects that they're buying, you're going to get massive value on how they're walking their projects and how they're evaluating deals. And then B, the person that you're shadowing now knows you. They're like, this creepy person just wants to follow me all day. That's great. And then, you just have good conversations, ask good questions, and show them that you're the real deal, that you're there to learn, and then you're going to take action. So that's another really good way.
And again, like taking action means a lot. So
Yes.
most people, at least within our real estate circle, are out of the abundance mindset. Like the open book, you can have whatever you want, no problem. But it's one of those things where if you get a bunch of information, if you get action steps, take it, because if you don't, yeah, that goes a long way.
It's gonna die. Yeah.
Like I know we're running out of time, so a couple of things I was curious about. What have been like, it could be related to networking, it could be related to business, but like what have been some like the best resources for you, like masterminds, podcasts, people on Instagram, books that you've read? What are some of the resources that have been really, really valuable and beneficial to you in your career and in networking and in just growth as a business owner?
Yeah, so I think networking with your local real estate groups. So go on Meetup and then find who that local, where those local meetups are, and then networking with the local community is going to find you those deals that you want to do in that community, or lenders or other resources that you need. If you want to raise capital, then you want to be national and you want to go network in cool mastermind groups. Like, I think I found some of the most life-changing thing that happened to me was being part of our Maui mastermind, which is where I met Ashley Wilson, Ashley Kehr, Nate I knew before, but like I met Brandon and AJ and like some really amazing people that have shaped my career since, helped me to think bigger and then also execute on that plan. So networking masterminds that are more national, that bring on some amazing attendees. You want your attendees to also elevate your thinking. So make sure that you're finding a mastermind that is right for you. And you're not going backwards. Like you're not becoming the mentor at these masterminds. Instead, you're actually learning from the people that are attending. That's been great. In terms of books, podcasts, resources, Bigger Pockets, like literally, I can't think of a better place to go find all of these resources. The other thing too that I'll say is the Bigger Pockets forum is amazing if you had questions, because there's nothing that cannot be answered on there. Of course, go listen to the Rookie podcast, because the host is very special. And then attend conferences. Like if you want to do multifamily, attend a multifamily conference. My favorite multifamily conference is the Best Ever Conference, and it's coming up in February. My favorite all-around conference is the Bigger Pockets conference, which is next October. And then find, like, if you're interested in different asset classes, find those different conferences that cater to those asset classes, like AJ's self-storage income conference, or the Disrupt Equity multifamily network conference, which is just like one day, but it's packed with speakers, information, and networking. So find conferences that best suit your needs and go to those. And then, I mean, on Instagram, I'll tell you, some of my favorite accounts to follow, if you're not following them already. Ryan Pineda is, he just has like a whole gamut of information. Beardy Brandon, of course. Go follow the Ashleys if you haven't. Go follow Nate for some just like killer authentic content. Thatch Win is another one who just throws out some amazing tips. Go follow the Data Deli for everything economic, like especially going into the next few months. We want to know where our CPI is landing. We want to know what our interest rates and inflation is coming in at. And the Data Deli does a great job with regards to that. Another amazing podcast is the On the Market podcast, because it's a lot of economics, like I want to say smooshed into an hour's episode of content. So just another good one to follow. Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff. That was really good. I don't know if we could type all that stuff in there.
No, but this is going to be on our YouTube channel. So
yeah,
next week, look back into our YouTube channel and you should find this video in there.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and I think I'll speak for myself. Something you said early on was like, paying for masterminds, paying for conferences, paying for access. And I think there's, especially when you're starting out, it seems kind of counterintuitive to have to pay for access. But I'm sure if you were to ask anybody who's been in real estate long enough, that everybody at some point has paid for access at some point, whether it's a mastermind or a conference or even one-on-one time. I know people have paid large sums of money to be one-on-one access, and then done everything you've said, provided value in that way, and it's exponentially helped their network. And so I think sometimes breaking off that conception, like, hey, I shouldn't have to pay for this. Well, maybe you do that by your friends,
Yeah.
That's why I pay.
Choose them wisely.
That's why I pay for the mastermind, because then hopefully Ashley will be my friend someday. But I've spent a lot of money, and I still,
long way to go, buddy.
She will not take my calls. Like that's why I took this opportunity, is just so we could be on the same call with her.
He's actually paying Leka to co-host.
Yeah. No. Nothing wrong with paying for access, people. Nothing wrong with it.
No.
I just have a little bit to add to that real quick, is all these events, masterminds, coaching, mentoring, books, everything is almost all of that information you can find for free on the internet. Okay. But the problem is there is so much information that it's like information overload. There's so many different ways to invest, so many different strategies, so many different ways to finance a property, to analyze a property, all these different things. So what paying does for it is kind of expedite that process for you. So you could spend years just going through all of the information that is available online. Like, where do you even start to look at a market? Okay. So you can pay to, have a mentor, have a coach, read a book, join a mastermind group, go to a conference and talk to people who are investing in different markets. And paying is basically, what is it doing? It's taking all that information down there and concising it into you. So maybe you're talking to somebody who has found something that is effective and that is working. So you can go ahead and take part of their plan and kind of work it into your own thing. Or you just want to know exactly the steps that you have to do. And basically that's what you're paying for. And you can get any or almost all of that information that you're paying for free. But this is, if you want to kind of expedite the process and you want it kind of more hand delivered to you than having to go out and find it your own.
Yeah. Plus, it's just an opportunity to, like, it's even beyond the information. It really is finding those relationships and building those deeper connections. So, I mean, really, it's like, we have to keep talking about the mastermind that we're a part of. And, the first year, it was good. It was a lot of fun, but it was like in the second and third year that we really became like really good friends.
That's because I joined in the second year.
I hate to tell you. No, just kidding. No, but it's really special. And when you can find that, it really is one of those things that sometimes you just have to pay for it, and it's okay. Leka, I know we have to do, we have 4 minutes. But what I'd like to do is ask, what are some of the what is your plan for 2023? What are some of the needs that you have? So we've been talking about networking, talking about adding value. So hypothetically, what are some of the needs you have that if somebody were to add value to you might help you out quite a bit?
Okay, so obviously, if you have good deals in Washington State, send them our way. But also, I think going into next year, it's all about stabilization of my current properties and projects. It's also about making my existing rental portfolio bulletproof. Now, what do I mean by that? It's increasing rents. It's converting maybe some units into midterm rentals. It is adding on more units where certain units already exist. Like I'm converting a triplex into a fiveplex. So just keeping the projects that I have, so they don't have to be refinanced, they don't have to be financed to begin with, they don't have to be found because I own them. But all I'm doing is increasing cash flow. It's a very unstable market, unstable time. So it's like, okay, whatever you can do to do more with less is basically my situation for next year. But I could always use more content creators. I could always use people with cool ideas. And if you have great speakers you want me to bring on this platform, just let me know. And pretty much that's it. And always, like always, just let me know how I can add value to you guys.
You could come visit me in the East Coast. I mean, instead of making me fly to Seattle 5 times a year.
Deal.
I'm doing that in January.
Guys, this is not about you guys. Okay, we have an audience right now, so you guys need to. You also have a lending thing that you're doing that might.
Yes. East Coast, Chris. Okay, so I do have a lending program called Loans by Leka. And if you guys want like hard money loans or bridge financing or gap financing or construction loans, go check it out and just hit me up after and I can give you more information if you want, but it's called Loans by Leka. Yes. Thank you, Nate, for reminding me.
Yeah, of course. So wait, if we type in Loans by Leka online, we'll find that, or is there like a website, or what do we do for that?
Yeah, if you just typed in like Loans by Leka, it should pop up.
Okay.
Okay, should we jump into breakout rooms?